Go. So
Cool.
sweet. All right, we're recording. This is official now. It's being
We
saved to the cloud.
did.
Yeah. So Sydney, I really appreciate your time coming on today. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
We're not. So I know, man, there's a million things we could talk about because I love your content. I love how niched you are and focused. And and I guess when I first met you, you were doing the styling, the personal stylist stuff. Now you're coaching and working with personal stylists to help develop their own brand. Is that accurate, more or less?
Yep. Yeah. Very accurate. You nailed it.
Sweet. Okay. Dope. Well, I don't know. Like I was looking at your podcast. We can talk about content creation, which again, you're doing a fantastic job of, and I'm taking notes on, getting inspired by you. But I noticed that the last handful of podcasts that you did were around mindset. So maybe tell me a little bit of like why that's become a theme for you and how important that's been for you and your business.
Totally. So there's kind of two pieces to this particularly. One is the content piece and one is like the actual like mindset stuff. When I go to create content, I usually try to batch it. So whenever I'm thinking of podcast episodes or even, Instagram content, I'm kind of doing it for a month or a week all at one time. And so for me, I basically just took one concept of mindset and then broke it down into 4 weeks. So I could really easily, quickly record almost like a mini series. Like those were a little bit shorter on the same thing and like save myself a ton of time. So that's kind of where that came from. Or how I produced it content wise. But as far as the actual content and talking about mindset, that is something I just believe is core to a successful business and being a successful business owner. And I think we all know and deal with like imposter syndrome or fear of failure, but it's kind of these like abstract businessy things that we hear about, but then we don't ever really know how to kind of get out of that. Right. I think there's so many articles written about that. And so, but not as much about how to change it. So mindset for me really started a couple of years ago when I first sort of learned about personal development. It's been an ongoing growth since then, but especially as an entrepreneur, you own your own business. You always have so many doubts or things are just going to flop or things actually do flop or they don't turn out how you thought they were. So you have to pull yourself out of that. It's just this constant state of having to keep going. And if it literally wasn't for learning how to kind of control my mind or control my thoughts and tell myself essentially that questioning my thoughts, telling myself 9 times out of 10, my thoughts are not reality, that I don't think that I would even be where I am without that.
That's so amazing. I mean, it resonates with me tremendously because I think imposter syndrome is real. And there's just something about like putting yourself out there to such a degree that without being dramatic, your life depends on it because this is your income and you're fully responsible for the results, the successes and the failures. And early on, you have far more, we'll call them failures, even though they're not really, they're more like stepping stones.
Yeah.
But you're hoping for that success and being able to navigate through that. I think for a lot of folks, it's just maybe they don't have the longevity to make it past those negative thoughts, those doubt, the fear. Like the most real, like true core fear that I've ever felt has been in starting a business. Actually, around like a year or so ago, and the second go around that I'm doing, and it sucks. Like it's not fun. And I think a lot of people glamorize an entrepreneurial journey with shows like Shark Tank, and there's a lot of great stuff out there. But if you're only looking at someone, and this is a big thing for me, of like, oh my gosh, that person's so successful. She seems to have it all together. Why is my business like that? Like, I see that as like a foundational piece. Like first get over that and realize that everyone is figuring out this whole game of life, game of business.
Yeah. And I tell this to my stylists a lot in the program because some of them are so just hesitant to get started or to put themselves out there. And my business has changed so much since I first started working for myself. Even when I was styling, I was always doing a different service or I was testing out what was happening. And so the thing I try to teach my stylists is that it's all a big experiment of kind of learning to control your mindset and then just continuing to do things and seeing what works. So when you can pull out of that more making everything personal or like about yourself or that you're less than somebody else, it really can help you because you're always going to be ahead of somebody you're always going to be behind someone. So like, you might as well just keep going because that's never going to change. Right.
Yeah. I like that. I've never thought like, you're behind some folks, but you're ahead of others, and you could
Totally.
be that mentor for someone else the same way that someone ahead of you is helping you. So everyone's kind of
Yeah.
pulling each other,
Yeah.
pulling
And
each other along.
I love Shark Tank. That's my favorite TV show. And I cry in Shark Tank because I'm so like excited when people get their deals and their like dream is made or whatever. So it definitely is like my favorite. But, I do think, yes, like we get into these holes of the comparison trap. And this is where I was going with all of this. How many times I've pivoted and changed what I'm doing, because anytime I go to do something, it's either like more aligned with where I'm supposed to be, or it's like a slight rabbit trail off, but I don't know that until I go and do it. Right. So I have to take a step to figure out, do I take one step forward, or do I need to pivot again and take another step to get back forward? So I think a lot of people think those are failures, but it's really just getting you closer to where you're supposed to be. And the mindset kind of, for me, it's a little bit about like helping you get there quicker and helping you get there without as much traumatic things as possible, hopefully, right? Sometimes dragging up mindset stuff is traumatic, but it's like a nice little hack in a way once you kind of can sort of get in there and tap into it.
Right. I mean, because there's no roadmap, there's no guide that says follow these steps. Well, the steps are probably like months or years apart. Step one, and then fill everything else in yourself, and then you get to step two, and you might not even realize, when you've arrived, because you never really do. But when you look at someone's story, they'll tell you the steps that they took without telling you, from inception to making whatever my goal of revenue was, that was awesome. And here's what I did. And here are the key things. They're not going to tell you the 1,000 things that went wrong, or the 1,000 things that they tried and didn't work. And what tends to happen, I found, I failed a ton. I did a lot of stuff, with King of Pops and what I'm doing now, where it just didn't work. And really it just gets ignored. And that's right. That no one's ever really, no one's laughed at me. That was the worst idea ever. So that's the fear that we have, though, because it is putting yourself out there. I had a mentor of mine, / coach. I'm in one of his coaching groups. He repeatedly would say, your mindset is the number one factor to your business success. And at first I was like, come on, Stan, like, you're a brilliant guy. Sales, marketing, like, surely there's something else. And then as I just did what he asked us to do in this group, and the beginning of this group was all focused around mindset. We did a perfect day routine, or perfect day exercise, which was the most, there's few things that had such an immediate impact in my life. I'm always hoping for that immediate impact. Rarely get it. This did. But as I've been, I guess, focused on that over the past, let's say 7-8 months, I'm like, wait, he is right. Because how many times did I not do something because my mindset wasn't right, or that I'd see an opportunity and just subconsciously say, I won't get that. That's not for me. I'm not worthy of that. I'm not smart enough for that. Someone else more qualified is going to get that. Change your mindset. You see those opportunities and you go after them, but you're also like, you create them. You see the opportunity before it's even presented. So it's not like a law of attraction thing, which I have no problem with. Like anything, people can take things to way too far extreme, but it's like, are you noticing opportunities or aren't you? And if your mindset's right, you will. Yeah,
for sure. I love the idea of having to have the mindset to do really well in business. Are you familiar with Poopery, the huge toilet spray? It's like essential oils.
Yeah.
So huge company. I want to say maybe it's like valued at $450 or $500 million. The founder, Susie Batiz, went through this whole essential spiritual mindset revolution and really applied that. And she credits that to the success of Poopery. So previously she had 2 bankruptcies. She was in a bunch of really horrible marriages and like tried to kill herself. And I'm in her mindset spiritual development course right now. And what is so fun, I feel like, is that I've been hearing some of these concepts a lot over the past 3 years, but every time you hear it from somebody else, it's like a slightly different spin, right? Or it hits you in a slightly different way, and that you really need to hear it. And sometimes I also think the whole mindset journey, well, I know that it takes your brain a lot of repetition to start to rewire that. So you have to hear it a lot. And it can take a while to get from that place of knowing it to living it, which I didn't really understand till probably this year. Of like, I know all of these things about, like law of attraction, manifestation, and mindset, but it is a different thing to then actually like see it happen, if that makes sense. Right? Where you get the point where you see the results in your own life and you're like, oh, okay, like this is me actually really truly knowing it instead of just like understanding it as a concept.
Yeah, that understanding of it is huge, because then you become your own barometer for where you're at, and then it's just checking in of, how am I feeling? Okay, well, I know that I can do this mindset routine and I'm going to feel better for it, because it's like, I don't know, that being one random example, but I love that embodiment, because it's all about every single decision that you make every day, and are you choosing the right one, so to speak, and only you can say that. And that's how you develop your mindset, is just having that guideline, and you can always change it.
Of where
totally. You want it to be.
And I've tried to apply that now to my like working habits and patterns, because up until now, like I'm like a very type A, like older sibling, perfectionist, Enneagram 1, right? Like do, like I can push and I can create things, but that's not, I'm trying to learn how to create and flow, right? So like doing things when I feel that kind of like mindset energy of like, okay, this is fun. This is what I'm creating right now, versus pushing through a 20 item task list just because it's on there. And then it becomes not fun. So that's kind of how I'm trying to implement some of this stuff in my daily tasks right now. And it's very interesting as a very like productivity focused person to say like, hey, let me do 3 things and be okay with that and stop. Then like keep going down that list. Cause I could do a list 24 hours a day, right? Like there's always something to do.
Right.
When you own a business.
Yeah. It's like, what else? And when you're in that right state of mind, I mean, connecting it back to just what impact does that have on a business? It's, I know the exact 3 things to do, top of my list. And if I do those, that can take care of potentially like a 60 list item that are lesser important things, but it's like knocking over that first domino that does it. I mean, there's that concept of, eat the frog, do the first thing first, the hardest thing. But I mean, it's the toughest thing to look at a potentially infinite combination of choices that you have of how to solve any business problem, whether it's how do I reduce my expenses? How do I increase my revenue? If you can get that focus on the right things, you don't have to work as hard, because it's just that much more efficient.
Yeah. I think we just have this kind of ingrained belief that you have to work hard to be successful, or you have to work hard to see the results. And so that's something I've been trying to just unwire in my own brain.
Yeah. And it's kind of your definition. I'm like, because that's been a self-doubt of mine of, am I working hard enough? Like, I think I'm kind of lazy. But then I look back, I'm like, oh, well, what did I do the past 4 days? I don't know, work from, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And it didn't seem like it, like, because I don't like work, but I'm having fun with it. And there's something that resonates.
Yeah. And I love those, I do love those long work sessions when you get into that flow and you're like, oh, this is fun. Like I'm writing emails and like, oh, let me say it this way. Like, so I definitely am not like opposed to those like long working sessions either, but it has to be that right energy, the right flow of energy, versus just I'm just pushing through to get it done.
Yeah. And I think it's fascinating. And I love that we're starting here, because I remember chatting with you, like I want to say it was like early 2019 when I was getting started into doing digital marketing and just this freelancing thing that I'm still figuring out as I go. But I think at one point we were talking about mindset, and it was something that like we connected. I think it was Dr. Joe Dispenza type stuff.
Yeah.
Where I was like, man, I hadn't like really talked about this with people before, outside of like this other mastermind group that I'm in. And I thought it was just really cool, because then I would take that, and then in other meetings I had with people that I had never met before, I would bring up mindset in some kind of way intentionally. And more times than not, people be like, yes. But what I found was early on, like in my early days of King of Pops, I didn't talk about that at all. I didn't talk about the struggles. I didn't talk about nothing, and it sucked. And so I think a lot of people, yearn for that or want that or have something mindset routine related, but they're just not terribly vocal about it. But that's my favorite thing to connect with people on.
Yeah. And so that's actually funny you say that. So like, were you into like a lot of the mindset stuff in your King of Pops days and you just were not talking about it, or had you not found that quite yet?
Not as much.
Okay.
Not like as much as a routine or anything that I would try just didn't stick. I tried journaling and the best thing I got was creating a list for the week and just systematically crossing out, but nothing that was like taking time for myself, because I would wake up stressed and anxious from the second my eyes opened until who knows when. The only thing that I had that was pretty critical was the book, The Power of Now.
Yeah.
So I think that was really doing that, where like there was a time I was like, all right, I'm doing good with this. And then I went south and it sucked because you don't realize it. But I remember one particular time when I was just like super upset about some plans getting changed last minute. And I was like, God, I'm going to show up late. It's not going to be my fault, but no one there is going to know that I was going to be there on time, but then something changed, whatever. And I just thought to myself, I'm like, this is dumb. No, like no one cares. You're going to show up 10 minutes late and no one's going to notice. And that's exactly what happened. And that was, I remember that day because it was just such a shift. And then then it's just been a practice to continue that.
Yeah. I love that. I think one of the things I'm trying to embrace more fully is sharing more like in real time struggles, or more real time, oh, I experienced this and I'm going through it. I think for a while I was I have to go through it and I have to get better from it before I can share it. And then I'm sharing my experience from a place of, now I'm better than you because I conquered this. Instead of, no, I literally just had the same experience you're having now, like 2 months ago. That's something that Susie, the founder of Poopery, has been sharing in her course. As she's been teaching each lesson to us, she's actually kind of gone through some sort of experience that represents the lesson. And then she will share it with us almost in real time. And for me to have someone of her like business success, like she's been on the Forbes list, like in the New York Times, like for her to share, like, no, I just had to face like this level of a fear. And like, I had this happen to me on this interview or whatever, has been kind of helped me be able to show up more like that for other people or for people in my own business. And it's been really helpful and I think transformative in literally just a week. I'm kind of thinking that way.
Yeah. It's having these people that we respect show a little bit of their, what's the phrase I heard? It's like you show the scar, not the wound or something.
Yeah, I think Glennon Doyle said something like that. But I feel like sometimes showing the wound can be good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's where I was kind of wrestling of like only showing the scar when it's healed and having a weird better than thou like mindset to being like, no, here it is still kind of messy.
Yeah.
A little bit.
And that's part of how you attract, you could call it your tribe, you could call it your buyer persona, your ideal customer, whatever, because those people, if they resonate with that, well, then you don't have to sell them on anything. It's like, I know your background, I know your story, and I know who you are, and I love and respect that. Oh, you're selling this and it happens to be in my niche, sure, I'll buy it. Right. So if you're, I think a lot of industries have that, where there's the marketing gurus that are like, sell, hustle, make millions. And then the mastermind that I was attracted to that, I bought all those courses, and it's been 100% why I'm able to self-sustain, my life right now. But it's more on personal development, being vulnerable, all these things of how to improve yourself, but in a way to better serve others. And the woman who had started it, she's super open about all like the things that she's not good at, and she's not perfect, but this is doing very well. But people like that. But I think people can be afraid that someone's going to use that against them if you show that.
Yeah, that was definitely, I think, my fear of like, oh, well, if I show that I am basically having the same issues my clients are having, then they're going to think I'm not good enough or smart enough or far along enough to teach them anything, right? And then they're not going to buy from me. And it is like the exact opposite, but you have to move past that like little voice in your head that's trying to keep you down.
Yeah. Yeah. And try to keep it down.
Keep
It
you down.
will.
Gotta
Because
keep it down.
it's so much easier to not do it. Like,
Oh,
yeah,
totally. Yeah.
I'm going to stay in bed all day. That it's comfortable, but is that why we're here? I think Marcus Aurelius said something like that. It's like, which is nuts because I'm like, that guy has been, he's a couple thousand years old. We're reading this stuff, but same issue. It's an ancient time. People wanted to stay in bed. It's like, it's the never-ending struggle, I think.
Yeah.
So, well, I want to also just, I guess, talk about like your niche, and maybe we can also bridge in the mindset of just your niche that you're talking to. You've already touched on that, how they resonate with your message, but I don't know, like why personal stylist is your niche? Why not go different or broad? I mean, I don't know, just start with that, I guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess really to answer the question is because I am a personal stylist. Like that's what I started when I was doing my own business. I don't necessarily style as much in person one-on-one now. I have an online style course. If people want to take it, they can, and learn from me that way. But what I found when I was a personal stylist is that you could go and get trained as a stylist, but there wasn't a lot of then business training. They just kind of said, okay, here, body types, now go do a session. And there was nothing about like email marketing or social media or how to price or, systems to help you take payment online. And that was probably, 4 or 5 years ago. And no, 3 years ago, 2017. So it was just definitely a gap in the market that I felt like I had to learn the hard way with mentors or other coaches or just trying things out for myself. And I wanted to fill the gap in that industry, the industry that I was a part of. So I started out with a course, like a business basics course for stylists. I did some one-on-one coaching. I did some group coaching. And then I wanted to go like just the online course route. But what I kept coming back to for myself and for my niche, which is really stylists that were like me when I first started, is, sometimes you have a lot of money to do things and sometimes you don't. You still are just trying to get it going. And I wanted to do this in the monthly membership format so that it was a little more approachable for stylists, that they can make a commitment of, $50 a month and get really awesome business training that they need to actually do what they want to do.
I find that fascinating because it's such a, it's not a niche that I know well. My supposition is that the fundamentals of what you're learning and what you've already learned on your own and teaching that to others, it's probably like, it's easier to communicate, or you see that roadblock maybe in advance, which allows you to better serve these folks.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's literally like, it's basic business stuff, right? Like it's how to do email marketing, but all the content is tailored very specifically to, if you're personal styling, how to clean out somebody's closet, how to shop for them, how to, make outfits, and then the logistics behind that. If you're making them outfits, how are you taking the photos for that? How are you then presenting that to the client, like in a lookbook or a PDF, yada, yada, yada. You can get into like all of the details. But because I've done it, I know exactly what they need or a way that they could do it to help streamline it for themselves. And they don't really have to try to Google or figure it out. They can just come to this literally one central hub and pretty much learn everything they need to learn. Because if I don't necessarily have something in there, they can ask the other members of personal stylists from all over the United States, Canada. We have some stylists in London. So they can ask stylists from around the world, hey, like, how did you do this? What do you think? Help me here. Encourage me here. Mm-hmm. And it's just a really awesome sense of community and like just building each other up, right? Personal development. And we talk about a lot of mindset stuff in there as well. Like each of my courses, I start with mindset exercises or like a breathing exercise or something to help kind of ground people and get them into that state of wanting to learn and being ready to expand and working on that throughout.
Yeah. Which that too, I've noticed of the level of receptiveness, maybe for lack of a better word. If you're able to absorb knowledge without whatever that ego barrier is, mm-hmm. People put their whole life's work into a book. I mean, in your case, of course, like this is everything you know about personal styling and the business side of it. And if someone's not quite there, they might be like, oh, well, there's something missing here. She's got something else. Like, no, like this is it. And I don't know, like that level of acceptance, you can just take that on, and then you suddenly have like up level skills like you wouldn't believe if you're in that place. But it's easy to think breathing, that's dumb. I don't want to meditate. I don't got time for this. Just give me the info. And it's
Yeah.
like, you need to warm up first.
Yeah. And I do kind of say that to people. I'm like, well, like this is not for you if you like just want me to tell you how to do it. Like I'm going to give you templates and resources and like, but I'm not going to just like tell you how to do it, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like I'm giving you a framework. You still have to do work and you have to show up. So.
Yeah, no, the showing up, I mean, that can, again, it's a short phrase that means so much if if you've been in a place where you haven't shown up. And
Right.
that happened to me yesterday. I was on a call, I was just like, hey, I messaged the guy. It was a group thing. I was like, dude, I didn't show up good. I apologize.
Yeah.
But if you're showing up, if you're showing up to learn, show up to learn as a student, not like, what can I take from here? Or what's like, let me just only take these tactics. It's the execution. There's no shortage of ideas
Right.
out there.
Yeah, totally. And like for me, part of like showing up too is like, you can watch all the videos and then not do anything with them, right? Like you could go through the whole training and not do it. You still have to get to that implementation stage, which is then facing your actual, your fears and moving past those. So it's kind of just this very comprehensive thing that we talk about in there, just because I do think it is so critical to business.
Yeah. Well, and I guess the content you're creating now is like, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of your podcasts. I guess that I see more. I mean, you've got a blog too. And that's all, I guess, how do you know that you're saying the right thing type of thing?
Yeah. That's funny that you asked that, because I actually need to sit down and record a podcast for next week because I haven't done it yet. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know what I want to talk about. So I do kind of try to think through what people have said in the group recently, like where they're at or where they're struggling at. And I also want it to be not only mindset. So I do want it to be like personal styling based as well. So I just kind of like think through, like, I don't know, what do I feel like people want to hear? Like, it's a very just like, seems like a flippant process, but I'm kind of waiting till I get a topic that feels fun to me that I want to write about, that I can talk about with energy versus just, let's talk about this today.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have the podcast, I have a dedicated Instagram, and then a newsletter. And those are kind of my 3 marketing channels, if you will. And then I basically cross post everything on like Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and Pinterest.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, if you're not feeling it, man, can it be tough to write like
Right.
3 sentences like,
Right.
why? But when you click and you're like, oh, I've written 10 pages, I need to make this shorter now.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. You've got like 2 months worth of podcast episodes. So yeah, I don't know if that's like a great answer, but I try to just talk about what I feel like my people need based on what they've said recently, or based on if they post about a question or a struggle they have. And usually it's kind of general business advice. But
yeah, well, and it's all it's very specific to your niche. And I mean, and you are your niche but what, 5-10 years after the fact, you're that mentor for these other personal stylists. And even someone, I mean, it doesn't matter where your starting point is. I think we can all learn from it. So, I mean, and this was something we were talking about right before we started recording. It's like, I need to do a better job with speaking to a niche. I just create content about business and marketing because I love it. But the power of speaking towards people in their voice and in their language is just, it's like taking your business marketing efforts and putting it, throwing gasoline on it, putting it on steroids.
Yeah, because then your audience can hear themselves in exactly what you're saying, and they can identify exactly with all of the problems you're outlining because you've either been through that yourself, or like very specifically what it is you're talking to. So I kind of also tend to do, like, I'll do my niche of, newer aspiring personal stylists, but then I also talk a lot about service process as a stylist. So one of the things that like a lot of stylists are taught or they go in doing is just having kind of random one-off a la carte services for new clients. And then it's a very frustrating process because they're always having to get like a new turn of client. The client doesn't retain very well. So I talk about just essentially having a signature offering, like a whole process A to Z, and like you start, in one point with them. And so that's almost like, it's not necessarily a secondary niche, but it's definitely a very niche down approach to doing personal styling that is a little bit different. So I kind of have two things like in a niche or like very specific marketing that I'll talk about.
So you're saying like and that being your beginners, people brand new, and then you also have another group or another core offering of your own towards maybe more advanced stylists?
Well, so like in advanced stylists may fall into this, but like it's the way in which any stylist offers a service. Usually it's like you could have clean out closets as a service and shopping as a service, but there's no like pathway for the client to go through. So the client could come in and be like, I want to go shopping. And I always equate it to like, well, you don't go to a grocery store without a list. You don't create a grocery list without looking in your fridge. So you need to do those things in a process. And if your clients don't go through your process and you don't have a process, then you're not going to be as effective. The client's not going to get the best result. You're going to be frustrated. And there's just so many benefits to creating that process. So like, that's more of like one of the things I talk about is how stylists can deliver a service that works really well instead of doing it in this like one-off way for their new clients. I think once you have a client in your service, you can do whatever you want because you've already gone through the process or kind of where they are.
I love that.
It's a very different way of talking about styling services.
Yeah. The metaphor of the grocery store, I might take that because it's so true. It's like,
right.
But because where I would have stopped was like, yeah, well, you're not going to go to the grocery store without a list. But what happens before the list? You got to check your pantry and your fridge.
And your fridge. And that's where you got to, throw out the rotten vegetables, see what's missing, like clean it out, go through it. So yeah.
That's cool. Because I've seen that and I think that's the case for any business of, I want to do all the things and I want to have my client maybe not like dictate to me what they want, but they say, hey, I want this. And you're like, hey, listen, you know, you want me to go grocery shopping for you, but we don't know what's in your fridge yet. So let's check that out.
Right.
And that turns into a confidence thing. And I know this from, 8 months ago, a year ago of, oh, you want me to do this? Cool. I can. And it was fine. It was like, I did that. And then once I checked under the hood, I'm like, okay, they need a lot more. And this is going to be fine because it does cross off on their list. It's not me. It's going to be someone else. So it's either, no, I'm not going to do that because this is what you need first, or yes, I'll do that, but you also need this and here's the price for me to do both.
Right, exactly. And so it's just kind of like either you're like leaving money on the table, because you can then charge more for a service that's a few parts or it's a process versus just one service at, $300 or whatever.
Yeah, right. And that's not a sustainable business. If you look at some of those things, like an hourly rate can look like cool on paper where like, oh, I got paid $300, $500 to do something that took an hour and a half. Well, I mean, can you live off of that? I mean,
right.
how many of those are you getting per month? If you're getting, so
you're going to have to get 30 new clients a month or whatever the case is. And that was like what I was running into. I was like, I don't know how $300 closet cleanses are going to turn into a $50,000 or $60,000 a year salary. It just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that, man, and that I'm thinking of myself and I'm thinking of other people too, because it is frightening to your core to tell someone, hey, what you need or what you're looking to do, that's going to cost you $2,000.
Right, totally. But when I did that and I made the switch, that was all I offered. So it was like, if you want to work with me, then it was like, I think at the time it was like a 6-month process. We would do the initial stuff. We would come back at the change of the season. Like it was an investment of you and your time. And yes, the price was there, but it was just such an immediate switch. And I had people saying yes, left and right. Because like they either want to work with you or they don't. And if they don't want to work with you, then do you want to work with them on a lower price service? They're probably going to be a pain, or they're just not going to be the right fit and you're not going to have fun.
Yeah. So, it's this exact thing that I've had to have beaten into my head over and over. And I'm glad we're doing it again and seeing it from your perspective, because there's that voice in your head that says, charge this rate. And then the other voice is saying, charge a rate that they will say yes to, or that you, not even that they'll say yes to, that you think they'll say yes to. And that's usually a far lower amount. And yeah, because I was doing some stuff, and there's some stuff I'll do at like $500 a month, which I know the time it takes. I'm like, cool, that's worth it. But earlier on, I was doing like triple the work for the same revenue. It's like that doesn't make sense for me, and they're not getting all the best stuff that they need. One other monument for me was when I was trying to decide how much to price for like an hour and a half session, where I went in, sat down with the social media person with this company and trained her on paid ads. And at first I was like, maybe I'll charge X dollars. And then I typed the email out, and I was just staring at it. And then I just took out the first number of it, put a different number in. It was like $100 more. And then they wrote back, sure, sounds great. And I'm like, in 5 seconds, I made an extra $100. I just took an hourly rate.
You probably could have charged it a little more too. You know what I mean? Like if people say yes that fast, it's probably a little low. That's what I experienced. So I like kept raising it. I eventually like doubled the price of it. And so like I had fewer clients, but they were better clients who like really needed help and really wanted to work with me because they were willing to pay that.
And do you think, if we're looking at, I guess, like the value provided, how does that impact if you're getting paid what you know it's worth, or the value that they're getting? I don't know, where does that, because I see that as a very harmonious relationship. I mean, that's where it turns into like, I mean, it's a transaction where it's an agreement, but it's much more than that. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, I think so. So I mean, I feel like I did kind of reach, like, I don't really want to say the cap, but like kind of like the limit of what I felt good about charging for that service, and like the clients being willing to pay for it, right? Like I raised it enough to where I was like, okay, if I raise it anymore, I'm going to feel like I'm not providing as much value, and I'm just not going to have as many clients booking it. Mm-hmm. So like with that, the way it was like set up and formatted. But I think it's kind of like just a balancing act between what it is you're offering and a price that you feel good about and that clients are going to book. Because if you're too expensive, then you're going to feel bad about it. If it's too like little, you're going to feel like you're getting gypped. And so kind of what I tell my stylists is I'm like, I can't really answer how you should price. Like you should start off at like a lower price that you feel it's worth. And then as you gain confidence and more experience, like you can up that, but you're going to have to ask yourself, like, do I want to do all of this work I'm outlining for this price? Or am I going to get irritated? Is the person going to frustrate me? You know, am I going to have to do more work? Or if I just bump it $100, am I then going to be like super happy to do it? Right. So it's like, it's a little bit woo woo and like, what do you want to charge?
It is. I mean, it's so subjective. And then that gets into the woo woo thing of, is money even real? You know, that spiritual side of money. But it's true. I mean, because it's not just the skills that you're doing, because and people, especially people just starting out, people are used to $10 an hour minimum wage. You know, at a certain point, you stop thinking of an hourly rate. But if you're like, man, $75 an hour, $100 an hour is great. But you flip it into, wait, it took me years of learning and trial and error, and I'm fixing this person's problem in an hour that would take them a lot longer to do a lot worse job of. So yeah, I'm going to command a higher price. And if you can't get to that point of, you might have one or two of those. I always have to learn by falling flat on my face. So I've had those ones where I'm like, God, for the amount of work I'm doing, I should have charged way more. It's a fascinating concept, and also on the we call it an asshole tax with a client that is going to be beating down your door or being a lot more high maintenance. It's more your time, and it's hard to quantify like that brain suck, that mental energy suck of that type of client until you have it. Yeah. So your pricing. I mean, I've had some pricing that it's not everyone gets the same thing. You don't have to be terribly consistent with it in some ways, because I've never had anyone who has 100% the same scenario ever. Right. So everyone gets different pricing. I know my baseline of the service I'm providing, but if it's like, okay, this is going to be a little bit more hand-holding, it's going to go up a little bit more to compensate for my time.
Yeah. We had that discussion in our group about when everything, was switching mostly to online. It was like, well, now we're online is it cheaper because it's virtual? And I was like, no, like you're still providing the service. Like if it's cheaper, it's because you're not having to spend as much in-person time with them. So like purely the hours are changing, right? Like you're not spending 3 hours in person cleaning their closet. You might be spending an hour on the phone teaching them how to do it. But on the flip side, you could also argue that they're still getting all of your information and knowledge and how to, so it could still be the same price, right?
Interesting. Yeah. And also the good vibes. People pay to get a problem solved.
Right.
You're solving the problem. And one of the problems might be I'm frustrated as hell at this damn closet.
Yeah,
Relieve that
totally.
for me. People buy all kinds of stuff to relieve frustration.
Yeah. And I mean, even the same for you. It's like, oh my God, I can't even like fathom trying to do a Facebook ad. That seems so confusing. I just need someone to do it for me. You know what I mean? Like it goes like for whatever industry anybody's in, there's always someone who's just like, F this, let me pay somebody, because it's going to, you know, whatever it's going to cost me $500 for them to do it is probably costing me double or triple by me spending my time at whatever my hourly rate is trying to figure it out.
Absolutely. It's the, my grandmother said it once, if you buy it cheap, you buy it twice.
Mm-hmm.
So when she was referring to it was like clothes, she worked at Macy's as a seamstress forever. So she always liked the best brands, but she's like, oh, this is a good brand. But if you get the good one, because if you don't, you'll pay for it twice. And
totally,
quick story. I tried mounting a TV into my girlfriend's wall and I failed. We tried to do it the cheap way. And now there's a few holes in the wall because I don't know how. I didn't know that there was like different power settings on the drill. Like I don't know. There's just one power setting. You just drill the damn thing. And I'm like, that didn't work. Opening myself up for some mockery of like how not handy I am. But
hey,
we should have paid somebody.
Yeah,
that's the point.
It is sometimes worth just paying somebody, and that's even with like my course. A lot of times, what I'll tell stylists is like, you can sit around and Google this all you want. You can have your own on-the-job life experience if you want, or you can kind of take everything I've learned and everything all my other stylists have learned and get like a shortcut and not have to go. Like you're still going to have to go through your own life lessons and learnings and falling on your own face, but we can probably prevent a lot of it from happening.
Yeah. And in the end, I think that's where really the main thing that we provide. And I didn't even think of this prior, but I mean, it's cool having this conversation, talking to someone who's also in a service-based industry. We are providing expertise and knowledge and solutions to problems as opposed to let me fix your car or something like, something more product-based is probably the example I was given.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of also like to like ask or have my stylists like think to themselves, like when you are doing a service, do you want to do it for them or do you want to teach them and guide them how to do it? Because then it's kind of like a different structure in that as well, right? Or it could be also a different pricing structure. So there's like so many ways to do like a service-based business.
Mm-hmm. The value ladder of you obviously have all this mapped out very, very well, but I mean, but that whole like done for you versus done with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or like even further from that, like teaching you just how to do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you on the front end create a course, someone can just buy it from you. You don't have to keep teaching people. It's a little more automatic. Yeah.
I love this, I guess this new, it's been around for a few years. I'm getting more into it, but I see that as like that's just how businesses are going, especially with education of you have all the options. It's not, I think however long ago it was only done for you and you're going to pay that premium price. Yeah. And it's gotten a lot better for the consumer because if you're that very handy, hands-on wanting to learn, you can learn it and there's going to be an offering for you. Cool. You don't want me to teach you and not spend the most money. Cool. Do it yourself. Here's some resources. Well, and that's like really awesome for business owners too, because you can have you can have an offering in each of those buckets for your ideal client, right? Because 9 times out of 10, eventually they're going to like come to you at maybe like the lower price to do it yourself. And then once they get there, they're like, oh, I really am invested in you. So let me then invest in this higher priced, smaller, more like hand holding. And then, oh, let me then invest in this higher price one-on-one where you're going, you know what I mean? Like, so as a business owner, you can also have different chunks for your same niche, for your same market, but different offerings
it helps you diversify without like diluting yourself, right?
Yes, I think that's just the key. I mean, you could call that the business model for anyone of, well, it's how do you make money? And you touched on earlier, what's your core offer?
Mm-hmm.
And then what's like the easier, less expensive things is a better way to say it.
Yeah.
To get
like
people
a lead in smaller taste.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then you're giving people those opportunities to people who would gladly pay for one-on-one at a far higher price than someone, but it's you tapping into a lot of different segments of the same market. It's pretty brilliant.
Yeah.
I wonder, this thought just crossed my mind. I had a call with my mom explaining a lot of these like marketing funnel concepts, and we were talking about that same thing, but like as a restaurant, which she knows well from a restaurant family. So like happy hour is like a lead magnet. You can come in, get it cheaply. Then hopefully you come in on the weekend when it's more expensive and do that repeatedly. And then maybe the highest end is like a private party, a catering or something. I wonder if there's an opportunity for like something very much more, I guess, conventional. Like I'm thinking like something home services, like an HVAC company or plumbing service. It's like, here's our course that's $100 on how to fix the most common issues. I don't know.
That's interesting. Yeah. Like having a traditional do it for you industry have something to teach people. Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably, it would be interesting to see if someone tried it and see how it would work. Yeah. That is a little more tailored than just going to YouTube, right? To Google, how do I fix my drain? Like, and then you don't know if like the person on the YouTube video is legit or not, and they're going to give you good advice.
That's always the thing is like, how do I trust this person? Or the concept that I heard from Ryan Dice from Digital Marketer, I doubt he was the first to say it, but people know they have a problem that they need to be solved. And if someone's like, I know I need to learn the business side of being a personal stylist, why should I take Sydney's course and not somebody else's? So that stage of awareness of I need what you have, but why should I buy from you? And if you're already established as a plumber, electrician, or whatever, it's like, okay, cool. I know why I should buy your course and not Google some dude online who happened to post a video 5 years ago. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, do you want the doctor to tell you how to cure your disease, or do you want someone's like home remedy? Home remedy can be interesting and fun, but I don't know if that's gonna solve your problems. So I love that. Well, damn, we covered some good stuff today. And anything else you want to touch on, or words of wisdom?
Words of wisdom. I feel like I should always be prepared for these types of questions at the end, and then I'm always like, oh, I don't know. I'm
gonna drop your podcast link in here in the chat.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, the one thing that's like kind of, I guess, coming up is I was talking to my stylist Wednesday, and we were just kind of talking about how like, oh, well, like the reason I do a podcast is because it is marketing, right? It's that closing the gap of like getting people to get to know me. And that's like literally the only reason that I do it. Like, obviously I'm providing valuable information and good things, but it literally is just to help people feel that like one next step closer to, oh, like, oh, okay, this is Sydney. This is what she does. I like her. Maybe they don't like me, and that's fine too. And then they can go find somebody else. Right. Like, but it's letting them see how I am and how I talk and teach or do whatever. And they will either like it or not like it.
I love that. And that's really the case. It's are you going to like the style in which I'm presenting this material?
Totally.
If so, then we're going to be a good fit. We're going to work well together. But if someone doesn't like my face or the weird facial expressions I make, cool, go to someone else, because who knows? So because I think that is like maybe like the final thing of like putting yourself out there in such a way. And you as you don't have any business partners, maybe you do, but I think it's just you.
Me. Yeah.
You are the everything of Chic Stripes. But if there's some business, like if you have that person who is the face, like, hey, I'm representing this company and there might be 100 people behind it, but it's like, I like that person. Yeah. I think that's just the fundamental part of marketing. I mean, it can be summed up into what you're doing with your podcast. You're giving people value. You're not asking for anything in return, and they can get to know you and a great level, and hopefully, they'll buy your stuff.
Yeah. And if they don't like my cats running across the table or when I leave out apostrophes, because things don't translate into Canva, then
Right.
This is not going to be where they want to learn.
Right. That's
and I can always, I will always continue to level up and get better, right? As soon as I move into an office where I have a door I can shut, my cats will not be running across the table. But I don't have that right now. So this is what we're working.
It's hey, that's who I am. And I mean, I've seen that. I talked to a guy a few weeks ago. His kids kept walking in.
Right.
And I'm like, that's the world we live in. And
exactly.
Don't be afraid to, show yourself, I think.
Right.
And that's what I love about, I guess, your content is you're putting it out there. So it's great.
Yeah. I'm just whatever. You gonna like it or not like it. This is how we are. So
you like it or don't. Well, I love that. Yep. Sweet. Well, I really appreciate your time. It was awesome catching up with you. I've learned a ton just hearing how you structure all your business and your offerings. It's so subtle, but so powerful. I think you've done a killer job of it.
Thank you so much. And I always love talking to people about mindset and finding a kindred spirit and all of the super woo.
Yes. We'll do this offline. I'll email you the new stuff I've been
cool.
looking at. Yeah, so we'll check that out. But
sounds good.
Anyway, all right. Take care, Sydney.
All right. Thanks, Paul. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.